Initiate sequence. Retrotron Entertainment presents
That 70s Nerd. I explore the hidden depths of 1970s pop culture, from movies and television to books, comics and magazines, music, toys, and technology. Discover forgotten classics and hidden gems you will not find anywhere else with That 70s Nerd. There has long been a rumor that the Beatles tried to get a film version of The Lord of the Rings off the ground in the 1960s, and this rumor continues to be repeated as fact. It appears that many people believe it, but after decades of searching for a single scrap of evidence to support this claim, I eventually became skeptical that it had ever been true. What I did discover was far more intriguing. Was there someone associated with the Beatles who actually did attempt to mount a Lord of the Rings feature film? There was. But first, let's take a look at the rumor itself. The rumor traces back to the late 1960s when the Beatles were at the height of their creative powers and exploring various artistic avenues including filmmaking. The story goes that the band members, particularly John Lennon and Paul McCartney, were enthusiastic readers of Tolkien's work and were captivated by the idea of bringing the richly woven tapestry of Middle-earth to the silver screen. Their interest in Tolkien's universe seemed to coincide with a period of intense creativity and experimentation. According to various accounts, the Beatles' plan for The Lord of the Rings was quite ambitious. John Lennon reportedly wanted to play Gollum, Paul McCartney was interested in the role of Frodo Baggins, George Harrison wished to play Gandalf, and Ringo Starr would have stepped into the role of Samwise Gamgee. They envisioned the film as a feature-length adaptation that would bring Tolkien's detailed world and complex characters to life. The band was even said to have approached Stanley Kubrick, a director famed for his visionary work, to helm the project. According to this urban legend, one of the pivotal reasons why the Beatles' dream never materialized rested on Tolkien himself. The author was known for his reluctance to sell the film rights to his works, partly due to a fear that the cinematic interpretations would not do justice to the intricate world he had created. When approached, Tolkien was reportedly unimpressed with the idea of a pop group adapting his literary masterpiece. His refusal effectively ended any hope that the Beatles had of pursuing the project. That is all there is to the rumor. But none of the Beatles ever mentioned Tolkien in any known interview, nor has his name cropped up in any published letters, journals, or reported conversations. No mention of the project appears anywhere in the document archives of the Beatles, J.R.R. Tolkien, or Stanley Kubrick. Recently, Peter Jackson reported that Paul McCartney confirmed the rumor, claiming that the idea went all the way back to the production of the movie Help. Yet, there are no Tolkien references in any Beatles lyrics, or in any of their post-Beatles work. Surely Sir Paul is a credible source. Well, Paul has been known to invent and alter stories from his life, especially over the last 20 years. It could be that he just didn't want to disappoint the famed director of the Lord of the Rings film trilogy. So, where did this rumor come from? I believe I have finally solved this mystery. Heinz Edelmann was born in 1934 in Osijek, Czechoslovakia, now the Czech Republic. His early life in war-torn Europe sparked a deep interest in visual arts as a form of escape and expression. Edelmann pursued his passion for art through a formal education, studying printmaking at the Dusseldorf Academy of Fine Arts in Germany. This foundational period not only refined his skills but also broadened his perspectives on art as a medium of communication and innovation. After completing his studies, Edelmann quickly became involved in the advertising and publishing industries in Germany. His distinctive style, characterized by vibrant colors and whimsical illustrations, made him a sought-after figure in graphic arts. He worked extensively as an illustrator for children's books and as a designer for advertising campaigns, showcasing his ability to blend commercial appeal with artistic integrity. The defining moment of Heinz Edelmann's career came when he was appointed as the art director for the animated film The Yellow Submarine. This project allowed Edelmann to channel his unique vision into a full-length feature film, blending psychedelic imagery with animated storytelling. The film's visual style was groundbreaking, utilizing the pushpin style created by designer Milton Glaser, who created the I Love New York ad campaign. Featuring bold, colorful landscapes and surreal, shape-shifting forms that captured the spirit of the psychedelic era. Yellow Submarine not only became a cult classic, but also a significant part of the Beatles' legacy, illustrating the band's creative evolution. Following the success of The Yellow Submarine, Edelmann started his own studio, looking to animate another fantasy film based around the music of a popular British rock band, not the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. The film was to be The Lord of the Rings. According to Edelmann himself, Charlie Jenkins, myself, and our business partner tried to set up our own studio doing features. A brief aside, Charles Jenkins was an expert at mixing animation and other media, and was responsible for the famous Eleanor Rigby sequence in The Yellow Submarine. Now, back to Heinz Edelmann's recollections. I wrote a couple of scripts, one of which we almost sold. This was sheer bad luck. There was a point when a representative of a major American company was going to sign a development contract on one of my scripts. This was scheduled, but there was a sort of shareholders' revolt at the movie studio, and they fired the company's entire management. That film would have been Volume 1 of Gulliver's Travels. The other project was The Lord of the Rings, but we couldn't get the rights. I felt The Lord of the Rings should not be done as a straight feature because as a story, Tolkien wasn't such a great storyteller. The magic is somewhere else. I felt it should be done as an opera, more or less like Wagner. We tried to get the Rolling Stones to write the music so it would be rock opera. Our agent in London did work on that. Then we talked to the Bee Gees. This might sound odd today, but remember this would have been around 1969 and the early 1970s. The Rolling Stones had just finished a run of very experimental, fantasy-oriented, progressive psychedelic albums. The Bee Gees were a decade away from Saturday Night Fever and were recording pastoral folk music with symphonic overtones. Edelmann continued, I felt the Stones had this strength to do something hard, opera-like. Mr. McKellen is a good actor, but I didn't like his Gandalf. I must be the only one in all honesty. Everybody else loved it. It must be poor jealousy on my part. It was badly directed as well. These black horsemen, they came across as pure stumblebums, idiots. Right then and there you can perceive that Mr. Sauron was being badly served, and it couldn't end happily for him. That isn't the end of Edelmann's relationship to Tolkien. Heinz also provided book covers for the German editions of The Lord of the Rings and The Tolkien Reader. Only 2 other Tolkien illustrations exist. One is a pen and ink sketch, perhaps portraying Sauron and Isildur. The last is the only known production art from his failed Lord of the Rings film, Gandalf battling the Balrog. One can only imagine what that film would have been like. I, for one, wish it could have been made. I would have grown up with it, as I did with Ralph Bakshi and Rankin Bass. Since my two favorite animated movies are The Yellow Submarine and The Lord of the Rings, I think I would have loved Edelmann's version. Let's unpack the facts. There is no evidence whatsoever apart from Peter Jackson reporting a conversation with Paul McCartney almost 60 years after the fact that the Beatles ever intended to make a film based on The Lord of the Rings. None of the Beatles, nor J.R.R. Tolkien, nor Stanley Kubrick ever mentioned the project. Heinz Edelmann was associated with the Beatles through The Yellow Submarine. Heinz Edelmann actually did try to film The Lord of the Rings, and to use the Beatles' biggest rival, the Rolling Stones, to provide the music. Edelmann applied for the rights and was rejected, just as the Beatles are said to have been in the old rumor. Actual concept art exists from Edelmann's doomed project. Edelmann is not only a Tolkien fan, but he also produced book covers for German editions of Tolkien's work. No Beatle, to my knowledge, ever even mentioned Tolkien, even once. Is it possible that someone in the Beatles' orbit heard of the Edelmann Lord of the Rings production and the story got garbled in the retelling? I think so. In fact, I think it is the only rational conclusion based on the evidence. In my mind, this puts the old rumor of a Beatles version of Lord of the Rings to rest forever. Help support this podcast and independent publishing by becoming a Patreon supporter or by leaving a tip at Buy Me a Coffee. Visit retrotron-entertainment.com for more information. Links in the description below. If you love classic 70s sci-fi, you will love Galaxy Astra, Paladin of the Crystal Planet. Hundreds of years ago, the human species abandoned Earth in generational starships and was transported via wormhole to a far-flung galaxy at war. Now humans have been dispersed throughout the stars, but there is still danger lurking in the cold vastness of space. The dread Paralords have returned from exile to threaten the peaceful reign of the Empress of Illumination. Every Retrotron book is painstakingly designed to look exactly like a vintage 70s paperback. Available in paperback and ebook from Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Booksamillion.com, Apple Books, Kobo, and Smashwords. Get your copy today.